Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fan Friction. I'm your host, Jack Shipley. Thank you so much for joining us. If this is real quick, what we do is we do some movie debates about goofy topics and have some fun for points. And at the end of the show, whoever has the most points wins. Points are determined by your arguments, your passion, and of course, your facts. So let's get right into it and introduce our fighters to you today. First, he comes from, I hid my notes 1 second. He comes from Dayton, Ohio. Please welcome Ryan Duncan.
Hey, everybody. It is Ryan coming out of America's little toe. That's right. Dayton, Ohio's not that special, but if you cut us off, it's going to be a really difficult time moving around.
Oh, how long did you plan that? Because
that was all top of my head. That was top of my head.
Our second fighter is from Cincinnati, Ohio. Please welcome Yusuf Konessa.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. It's gonna be fun debating movies here.
Yeah, welcome to the show. Really great to have you. And if you haven't picked up on the theme yet, our third fighter is from Columbus, Ohio. Please welcome Dan Nye.
Hello. Thanks everybody for having me. Ryan, I've lived in Ohio my whole life, and that little toe thing just totally threw me off and weirded me out. Be like, this is something people in Ohio say that I've never heard.
And guys, we can't judge a fight without some fact checking, and I picked the best fact checker around because he's also from Ohio. Please welcome our former champion and host of the DVD Bunker, Brian Hurst.
Hey, thanks for having me back, everybody. It's good to see these fellow Buckeyes come out and show that this isn't just a place where we grow corn. There's not even a cornfield like within 10 or 15 feet of my house. So like, what's up now, everybody? Like, take that, take your stereotypes and walk, baby.
Well, I'm from Pennsylvania, but I live near Amish country, so there's lots of corn out where I live. But guys,
I thought it was all steel refineries. I didn't know.
Well, that's Pittsburgh. That's the steel town. But guys, of course, if we have someone to fact check the facts, we also have to have someone to talk to you on social, and that's why we welcomed back our champion. That's right, everybody. It's Kimber Barrett, champion of TUFF.
Hey, everyone. I have never been to Ohio, but I'm glad to be here, and I'm excited to see what these new guys have for the show.
It's going to be fun, and just to let everybody know what's on the line here, so there's been some Twitter talk between these three, and they wanted a shot at Brian Hurst, and they all thought that they were worthy, but there's no way to test if they were worthy unless they came on here, hit their microphone with their hand, and then fought it out live on on Fan Friction. So that's why we're all here today. So the winner will go forward and have a shot at Brian Hurst sometime later this year, so look forward to that. But to get into it, let's start up with the speed round. So the way we do things here is we have 5 speed round questions. I'm going to start with Ryan. He's going to pick a question from the list that I give him, and that's going to be our first speed round question. The guys will have to yell out an answer. God, it's been a long time since we did this. They're going to yell out an answer, and then they'll have 20 seconds and 10 seconds to fight for it, and then we will pick a winner. So here we go, Ryan. These are your speed round categories. Villainous Villainy. That's Incredible. I Love the 80s. Super Television, and Bubba.
You know what? We're taking down a villain, so let's go Villainous Villainy.
Villainous Villainy it is. All right, this one comes from Philadelphia on Twitter. Thank you, Bill, for submitting this question. Which comic book villain deserves a movie instead of Jared Leto's Joker?
Hela from Thor Ragnarok.
Okay.
The Riddler.
Dr. Doom.
Okay. Awesome. That was Dan, Yusuf, Ryan. Okay, Ryan, you're going to have 20 seconds once my phone that keeps turning off every time I need to use the stopwatch. There we go. Okay, you're going to have 20 seconds. Time will begin when you start speaking.
So Hela was an interesting villain who didn't get enough time and presence in the film Thor Ragnarok. So what I want to do, I want to see her journey into hell, because I think it's been confirmed she died at the end of Ragnarok. So let's go to the Marvel hell. I want to see that happen. And Kate Blanchett is fantastic in the role.
Time. All right. Yusuf, the Riddler.
So the main issue I have with both of you, both of your picks, is that we've already seen those villains play out, triumph, and die. The Riddler has never been part of the canon of the movies in in the Batman series as was told the Joker. We only got that Jim Carrey crappy over the top performance. We should have Batman be a detective and try to solve.
Time. All right. Dan with Dr. Doom.
So what you guys were talking about was Hela had her chance. Sure, she's cool. She's a little bit of a one-dimensional villain where she's kind of like, hee hee hee. And yeah, we definitely had a chance when it came to the Riddler. And it was kind of like, there's not really a desire for that. Dr. Doom has been built up over so many years, and he's like the big bad. This is like, you could rival Thanos as far as like, they've screwed him up twice, and it's someone that definitely deserves their own standalone. And you're doing so many jokes.
Ooh, it's getting good. All right, Ryan, back to you. You have 10 seconds for rebuttal.
Just standalone Riddler movie without Batman, it just doesn't work. And Dr. Doom, they've tried it twice, it didn't work. I want a Hela standalone movie to flesh out that interesting character from Ragnarok.
Time. All right. Yusuf.
I think it does work because he can easily go against the cops, and you can see how his mind works and how evil he can really become. It will be just an anti-hero, you rooting for the bad guy type of movie.
Time. All right. Finally, Dan.
If they do a Riddler movie, it's just going to be a watered-down version of the Joker. To do a Hela movie, you already kind of saw her own movie. Dr. Doom has so much more lore, and multiple villains fight, or multiple heroes fight him, not just the Fantastic Four.
Time. Wow, that was good. Good opening salvo, guys. Welcome to the arena. Let's start with Brian. You heard the arguments. What do you think? Who would you pick?
You know, I was really looking for somebody to jump into the head of the line by like giving me a real quick plot summary. And I think both Dan and Yusuf got closest, but I think Dan opened it up just a little bit more by mentioning that they can cross over with multiple villains. And, you know, he's just got, I think they're very balanced as far as like Hela and Doom have equally interesting backstories. And, you know, so I'm going to go with Doom.
Okay, 1 point for Dan. Kimber, who'd you like? Don't forget that you're muted, by the way. We knew it would happen. There we go.
So for me, it was hard to get into Yusuf's argument because I literally already pitched that movie on fan friction. But yeah, the other two guys were pretty close for me. I thought it got a little repetitive on both of their turns doing their fight. They kind of said the same thing, but for me, it was pretty close between Dan and Ryan.
Okay. Do you have a pick between the two?
It's a stalemate for me. Sorry.
All right. So it comes down to me to break this tie. To be honest, I thought it was a little bit more between Yusuf and Dan. While I liked the way you wanted to go, Ryan, I thought that Hela didn't get enough. We didn't get enough about why hers was better than the others. Whereas I think I got a clear picture between both Yusuf and Dan why their characters deserve the movie. So when I'm picking between the two, I'm trying to figure out who gave the best argument based on the advice from Brian and from Kimber. The common denominator here is Dan. I'm going to give Dan the point. Well done. Yeah. We can cheer for ourselves because we don't have a clappy machine.
Yeah, we're great.
We're awesome. Okay, so Dan, the point. Well, congratulations, and that gives you control of round one. Who do you want to go first?
Wait.
We can, sure. Do we have some people from checking in from social?
Yeah, so we have Sam at Sis Mary Elephant. He's dropping the Titanic gif saying that it feels like forever since Tuff's been on. Nolan Dean at Nolan Dean 27 says every villain in existence deserves their own movie more than Jared Leto's Joker, which I agree. And Kim Hanley's like, how about a Venom movie? Haha.
All right, let's go into round one. Dan, you have control. Who would you like to go first? Who would you like to go second? Who would you like to go third?
I'm going to go last.
Okay.
And I want to hear Yusuf first and Ryan second.
Okay. You got it. All right, so we're going into question number one. What is the best movie that takes place at least 50% in Ohio? We didn't go through the movies exactly and make sure it's 50%, but they're pretty close. So I think you'll like these picks. Yusuf, we're not timed anymore, so who did you pick?
So my pick was American Splendor. This movie is adapted from a graphic novel series of the same name that chronicles the life of Harvey Pekar. The story is about one of the most common characters you can ever be based on, but yet somehow it's completely unique and compelling, drawing the audience in. Thanks to his frankness, point of view, and his just dark sense of humor. He works a thankless job as a file clerk at a VA hospital in Cleveland. The movie follows him as he goes through the ups and downs of the series, gaining fame, meeting his wife, and dealing with cancer. And it's concluded with his retirement party, his actual retirement party from the VA hospital that he worked for 30 years. What I really love about this movie is how they managed to mix a bunch of genres. It feels like a documentary. It feels like a straightforward character study, and it feels almost like a comic book movie also, because it has a lot of cartoonish imagery woven in between the scenes. And what I really love about the movie is the ending. Spoilers.
Go ahead, spoil away. This one's been around for a while.
It's Paul Giamatti and Judah, who Paul Giamatti plays Harvey and Judah plays Toby, one of his friends. They walk off the set and they sit in the background, dwarfed in front of the actual Picard and the actual Toby, just letting us know that the real humans behind this story are the true stars of the movie. So that's why I liked a lot about this movie.
Very nice. Ryan, you're going to go second. Tell everybody what you picked.
So this was a little bit of a different. Ohio is not that prominent in a lot of films, except the one that I forgot, but I'm not going to bring that up. So I found out through IMDb that the film Small Soldiers takes place in a fictional town in Northeast Ohio. And what I love about this movie is it was ahead of its time in calling out the militarization of everyday life. Back in 1998, I don't think a lot of people foresaw how the events in the early 2000s and the 2010s would unfold to where, our police force would be given military grade weapons, our everyday items would, seep into it. And then it's a satire too of Starship Trooper, where it's toys coming to life trying to fulfill their primary objective. And it's funny because it's like, even though they're using the toy soldiers led by Chip Hazard are trying to kill the Gorgonites, this kid who's a bit of a troublemaker decides to befriend the Gorgonites, and it's just silly fun. They bring Barbies to life, for God's sakes, and it's full of awful puns. The movie knows what it's trying to do, even though it was mismarketed. It was marketed for kids. I saw it as a kid. I didn't get the core concept. I just was like, oh, cool, toys are coming to life. It was a film that I revisited as an adult and realized how intelligent it was. And also a bonus, it had the late, great Phil Hartman. It was his last movie role, and it was dedicated to him. And Phil Hartman plays a great next-door neighbor tool of a guy who just is hilarious. Phil Hartman's funny and everything. The cast does a great job, and it's a lot of great voice talent too.
Nice. All right, Dan, close us out. What'd you pick?
So for my pick for what the best movie set in Ohio is going to be, I remember them saying this in the movie, and I picked something that I feel it gets overlooked a lot as far as this genre and as far as people reflecting back on it. It's one of those movies that very much still holds up with time. I don't want to call it a timeless movie. It's not a classic, but this is definitely, you can put it on. You're always going to be entertained. You're not going to want to change it. So there's a line in this movie, and the movie is The Faculty, where he says, if you were going to take over the world, what would you do? Blow up the White House, Independence Day style, or would you come in the back door in the middle of Ohio? So that's one of the things I really like about this. Not only is it go over multiple genres from action to horror to science fiction, but you get a whole lot of Ohio, where it's like, if you see some of these other movies we're going to be talking about here, like they come off Ohio in one of them as like kind of sardonic, and this is really not a hopeful place. And I feel like we have a really weird perspective from the rest of the country, maybe even the rest of the world. But in The Faculty, you're getting like even a little bit of like Major League. You're getting an underdog story. You're getting these outcasts that are coming together, and eventually they come. You have the jock, you have the nerd, you have the grunge kid, and they all come together to form just this big coalition that winds up defeating aliens in their high school.
All right, guys, fight it out.
Dan, I'm going to say this the nicest way possible. I rewatched The Faculty yesterday. I don't think it's timeless at all. The effects do not hold up. They are atrocious. And the cliche of the group of kids beating the alien invaders, it's a bad trope in horror, and it was prevalent in The Faculty.
I mean, you could say it was a bad trope if you want to view that movie negatively. I disagree entirely. I think it's great. I think they come together nicely. I will give you the effects. The effects are a little rough for it being 1998. But if you want to talk about a movie that doesn't hold up, Small Soldiers looks like they tried to put together Transformers a few years before their time and Toy Story and just said, how can we make this dumber? I understand what you're trying to say as far as it goes with a satire, but it does not come up. It's not well executed at all. It's almost like an afterthought where they're like, oh, yeah, because they came from the military and then they got in the wrong hands. And then chips that can guide missiles are suddenly going to go into toys. And I'm like, it does feel kind of like a precursor to Transformers. And it doesn't help that the same dad is in both.
What I really don't.
I want to hear you, Yusuf.
What I really don't like about your choices is that the only reason that you're talking about Ohio is it's not about Ohio. It's just an excuse to be placed in Ohio. The only reason we're talking about it is because an alien invasion happened in a high school in Ohio, and a toy invasion happened and just happens to be, like you said, a fictional town in Ohio. So there's no reason why it's on Ohio outside of just this grandiose, exaggerated event happening to justify us being in Ohio. American Splendor celebrates Ohio for what it is. It's day-to-day life. It's not the most extravagant, the most fun place to be in, but still has worthy of having stories told about it. Like Harvey Pekar is the prime example of that. He's just a common man who came out of Cleveland, and he reinvented the graphic novel genre of the autobiography.
I have two kind of big problems with American Splendor. Number one, Paul Giamatti is just being Paul Giamatti, like in every film. He didn't really. Okay, then Harvey Pekar is too much like Paul Giamatti, I guess. It's just, I feel like I'm watching American Splendor, and it's like, okay, I've seen Paul Giamatti do this before. And something that just stuck me the wrong way, everybody in that movie seemed a little bit too cartoonish. Like, they didn't seem like real people half the time.
That's fair, but I combat that with the fact that they present the actual real people during the movie, and you see that they're doing pitch perfect personifications of the characters they're inhabiting. Like Toby comes off like with this weird cadence, but it just happens to be that this person actually talks this way. And Harvey is just as grumpy and just as melodic that Paul Giamatti usually plays in his movies.
But I mean, you want to go, Ryan? You want me to?
No, Dan, I will let you.
Okay.
This is the most polite first round we've ever had.
Well, I don't like to be rude.
No, after you.
But that's kind of the thing is, like, when you're talking about American Splendor, it's like, cool, so everyone in Ohio is just this eccentric weirdo, and I think that's kind of a misrepresentation of the state. And it's like, you're sure Cleveland, if you're looking at all the artists in Cleveland, I'm sure there are some there, but it's not going to be like we just all happen to be quirky, which is why I really push for The Faculty, because it's like you're getting a large group. You're also getting a whole lot of stars before they really hit. You get like prime Robert Rodriguez right after El Mariachi, right before he went and did Spy Kids. So I think the story is a really well told one.
It's an okay told story, but within the movie they point out films and stories that did it better than The Faculty, with Invasion of the Body Snatchers and all these other things. And one thing I almost totally blanked on it for American Splendor, the most interesting guy that wasn't even Harvey Pekar, it was the gentleman who wrote the Fritz the Cats comics. I want to see a movie about that guy. He's the movie, which I do think they actually made a movie about him. But the most interesting character presented within American Splendor isn't even the guy we're supposed to focus on.
But that's kind of the point about the movie. Like, what this movie and what the graphic novel pushes is that everybody deserves their own story. Like, we don't need a grandiose event happening. Everybody has their own villains. Not all of them are as eccentric as a Thanos or a Killmonger, but it doesn't mean that that annoying coworker, that anal retentive supervisor that is driving you crazy is not your villain, and it's not your mountain to climb and to conquer on your each day to day. Can I attack a little bit the faculty here, because it's not only not the best set in Ohio movie. It's not even the best horror movies of the mid-90s. It tried to do the exact same thing that Scream did, having this weird meta storyline in where one of the students knows everything about sci-fi, and it tells you all the tropes and all the story beats that you have to conquer. Like, it just made me want to watch Scream because it did it better, and it did it way before the faculty ever did it.
So let me get you guys moving towards final thoughts here for a minute too, and,
sure.
And you can include this, Dan, in your rebuttal.
Sure.
But I want to know why your movie is the best movie compared to the other two. Why is your movie the best? Why don't we start, Yusuf? Since we'll do some final thoughts here. So Yusuf, why don't you start? Why is your movie better than the other two?
The reason why American Splendor is the best movie out of this three, not only is just that it's actually highlighting Ohio for what Ohio is that it is both technically made, it's incredible, it blends the genre, it never loses the audience, it's funny, has a dark sense of humor thanks to Harvey Picar, the acting is incredible, all of them across the board, even Judah Springfield from 30 Rock actually has a great performance. It's not just the dude with the hat in 30 Rock. And it highlights Ohio. It's not shameful to be in Ohio. And it's a little bit shameful that the guy that moved from an island to Ohio is advocating for a movie about Ohio, celebrating Ohio, and it's not excused alien invasion, toy invasion. Oh, it happens to be in Ohio, but it doesn't. It's just a throwaway line.
All right, Ryan. Final thoughts. Why is your movie the best movie?
Okay, so the reason I prefer Small Soldiers over these two films, Ohio, I hate to say it, we are a background state. We're not meant to be. So Small Soldiers, it's just in Ohio. Ohio isn't meant to be the focus. It's meant to deliver a story. And for Small Soldiers, it's the message of the creeping militarization that, I know it seems silly when you're watching the movie, it's happening in our everyday lives now. It called it 20 years ago. The reason I like it better than American Splendor is I don't need a story about how crappy life is in Ohio. I know how crappy life is in Ohio. And the faculty, I just can't, because it plays too much into the cliches of horror. It's formulaic. I'm sorry, but if you watch the first 5 minutes, you know how it's going to break down. There's nothing new about it. When it comes to horror, if I'm going to love it, it needs to do something new, or it needs to do something greater than any other attempt at it.
All right, Dan, final thoughts. Why is your movie the best?
Sure. I don't, and they keep harping on the cliches and how this has been done before, and that's not exactly what my point was. My point is this is a more solid all-around film. Cliches and homages are not necessarily a bad thing, especially when they're done well. I believe that they are done well in this movie, and what you're getting, effects notwithstanding, is you're still getting a good story, and you're getting a great blending of genres, because you don't always get that. Like Scream is basically, they pointed out, it's a similar movie, but this is different because you're doing sci-fi, you're getting some Scream, you're getting Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It's all around, and I think what Yusuf was saying about it being, you said a little bit ago, it was a character piece. Just because it's a character piece doesn't mean that it's central to the plot of Ohio. Like, you can pick that up and you can put it anywhere. This could be in Philadelphia. It could be in Baltimore. It could be in Poughkeepsie. It doesn't really matter where that character came from, as long as it's like a B to C level town. And as far as Small Soldiers go, I feel like the debate kind of happened and we kind of forgot about it, just like everybody forgot about this movie. And again, you're seeing that film, and it's just a random town. The fact that this is in Ohio for the high school of the faculty, you have so many of these late 90s movies and early 2000s movies that are talking about the high school life, and this one is important that it's set specifically in Ohio, because that's how they feel. That's how you get everyone coming together. That's how you get the underdog story really going. And that's, I mean, if I'm going to want to be in any of these movies, I'm going to want to be in the faculty. I'm going to be Josh Hartnett catching that big paper cutter and cutting off fingers of Jon Stewart.
Time. Well done, everybody. Nice first fight. Good job. We're going to do things a little differently than we have in the past. We're going to let Brian and Kimber both weigh in on the film. We will do social at the end of the fight or at the end of the judging. So bear with us as we try a new way here. So, Brian, let's start with facts. What did you have for this particular fight?
I mean, not too much like to correct on anybody's arguments or anything. I did know that American Splendor was nominated for 1 Oscar for adapted screenplay. Small Soldiers was directed by Joe Dante, who was, you know, the guy who brought us Gremlins and Gremlins 2, which arguably might be a better film about weaponizing cute, cuddly, sellable creatures. I don't know. I'm just saying, Gremlins 2. And then as far as the faculty goes, I did find that 100% of people think that Josh Hartnett swinging that blade is badass. So I damn right on that.
Yes. Nice. So, Kimber, we're going to start with you here. What did you think of the arguments? And if you had to pick, who would you like?
I think that everybody had some good points here and some good moments. But I just think particularly in that final argument there that Dan was really taking into account what everybody said and deflecting and fighting against those. And I think that he just had the most well-rounded argument for why his movie was the best place, you know, best one that qualified for this question, rather than being the best like Ohio movie, which I didn't take as the meaning of the question.
Okay. Brian, same question or same thoughts. What do you got?
I understand. You know, I thought that the kind of pro-con thing between both Dan and Youssef were kind of canceling each other out. Like, they're both set in Ohio, but they're both about things that you could have subbed out the word Ohio for. You know, Midwestern ennui in American Splendor, or just like kind of like under quiet staging ground. It could have been almost any state, but I don't think that's a problem. I just think they kind of cancel each other out. And then as far as just arguments based on what's the best movie, best performances, I like that Youssef brought up the combination of animation and filmmaking that went on in American Splendor. I don't think that is talked about enough. That's really really cool in that movie. They like get his actual art style into it. So I think I'm going to lean toward. I like Small Soldiers, but I think Ryan had an uphill battle on me. No offense, buddy. I just think American Splendor would take it for me.
Yeah, so I fall a little bit in between. So Kimber's right. These questions are kind of weird because you're never sure, like, am I supposed to focus on the movie or am I supposed to focus on Ohio in the movie? And there's a little bit of both for me when I judge because I asked Ohio, I want Ohio to be present, and it is fairly present in all 3 of these movies. I think, Ryan, they really did hit you hard about it being a fictitious town, and especially when you went after the special effects and the faculty. And then I was like, man, I hope you've seen Small Soldiers.
I've watched both of them yesterday. I'm telling you, Small Soldiers holds up 1,000,000 times better than the faculty.
It does, but it is true that when Dan rebutted almost right away, yeah, but the Small Soldiers has, you know, doesn't have the greatest effects either. I did find that to be a good rebuttal. I think that they're actually, Ryan, you had some very good attacks on both Youssef and Dan. But I think, like Brian said, you were a little bit more uphill for me than Youssef and Dan presented their arguments. So it did come down between those two as well. So when I'm looking at like between Ohio and then the better film, I think that Youssef definitely sold for me that Ohio is a character in his movie for sure. And I think that Dan expressed very well why Ohio plays a role in his movie, but isn't necessarily like the main character. So for me, I had to figure out like where really the winner would lie between these two. And I think that I am leaning a little bit more towards Brian on this one, that I think Youssef sold his film a little bit better and didn't take the knocks that Dan and Ryan were taking for their own films, because I don't think there was as much chaff in the water, so to speak. Chum, whatever you call it. I don't know movies. So at the end of the day, while it's very close for me, I'm leaning a little bit more towards Youssef. So Youssef, congratulations, you get the point. So,
Thank you.
Youssef picked the right movie. I watched that yesterday and was furious because I'm like, this is too good. This is too good.
It's a really
It's
good
an
movie.
excellent film.
If you haven't seen American Splendor, definitely see American Splendor.
Yeah, it's excellent.
So let's go to Kimber here and talk social. What did people on the internet have to say? What were their picks?
Yeah, I would have went with the same choice that my buddy Joe Davis at The Spice Must Joe went with. If we're talking fictional towns, he wrote, set in the fictional town of Springwood, Ohio. At least half of it's there. The other half is set in your dreams. He goes with A Nightmare on Elm Street, which is like an amazing movie, and that's definitely what I would have probably chosen if I. But there was a lot of love for your guys' picks, in particular Small Soldiers. I know that Tom, you guys know Tom, my future husband, he loves this movie, and I hear him.
See, I should have talked to Tom this week.
Any other picks on Twitter? Was there a poll? Did we have a poll?
No, we don't have anyone running polls.
Okay.
It's hard to focus and then do the social and a poll.
I got you.
But yeah, there were some other choices, but some of them were arguing about what would technically qualify. I think there was some love for Scream 2 that I saw out there. I think that was with Sam. So
nice, guys. Well done.
Heather, Tommy Boy, and then also Gummo. If you've ever seen Gummo, check that out too.
And in theaters this year, Ready Player One, which everybody didn't like but me, because I really loved that book. But anyway, let's move on to the second speed round. Yusuf, you're going to get to choose the question for this round, and here are the categories one more time. We have That's Incredible, I Love the 80s, Super Television, and Bubba.
Let's go, Bubba.
All right. This is the book that got Bubba cooked, because this question is about what is the best James Earl Jones movie?
Star Wars.
The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, are we really going to do that?
Field of Dreams.
Thank you. I'm like, we're not doing Return, are we? Because the end is Return, and then I'd have to be like,
Best Star Wars movie fight.
Field of Dreams. All right, so we got Star Wars from Yusuf, Empire Strikes Back from Ryan, and then Field of Dreams from Dan. Yusuf, your time will start in a moment when I get back to the thing that keeps closing. There we go. Time starts whenever you start speaking. Go for it.
So not only is Star Wars a great movie, we all know that. The reason why I picked it for the best James Earl Jones movie is because if you look at Darth Vader on itself, he could have easily failed, and it's his voice and his power that he brings to the performance that really drive that fear and that evil behind that weird breathing mask.
Time. All right, Ryan, you're next with Empire.
So Empire takes what was built on with Darth Vader in the first film and actually gives us more of Darth Vader, his menace, his power, more interactions with some of our favorite characters. I'll never forget the first time I saw him grab the gun from Han Solo. There's just more of Darth Vader in Empire than in the first Star Wars. That's why.
And Field of Dreams.
That's not your finger, that's a gun. Everyone remembers that line. You're actually getting a James Earl Jones full performance. Like, those two movies are great, but you're not doing James Earl Jones. You're getting a guy on set, and then you're getting James Earl Jones doing voiceover. In Field of Dreams, you actually get to see him interact with Kevin Costner, and it's a much more well-rounded performance and film than those two.
Time. All right, Yusuf, 10-second rebuttal.
I'm sorry, he's not a great actor. We all know him because of his voice and his great presence through his voice. So I don't care if he's on screen or not. He's delivering in Star Wars with his amazing voice work.
Time. Ryan?
He's actually more than just the big menacing character in Empire than versus in the original Star Wars. You get a great reveal. And to jump on Yusuf, he's not that great of an actor. He's a great voice actor.
Time. Okay, and Dan.
I disagree with both of you. I think he's fantastic on screen. You actually feel a lot more in Field of Dreams than you would have had Kevin Costner just gone nuts and started talking to corn, because you actually get James Earl Jones giving a lot of heart in that film.
Time. Whew. Okay. Let's start with Kimber this time. Kimber, what did you like?
Yeah, I mean, I saw my face and Brian's face. That was a brutal blow when he's like, "Mine's the only one where he's on screen." Like, that's really hard to argue against. And I don't know, like, I just got to go with him. Like, voice acting, I might have even picked Lion King over the Star Wars personally. But for me, that was too brutal to be able to escape.
Yep. Brian, how about you?
I wanted to tell Dan that I think the more iconic line is when he goes, "Moonlight Grand."
I wanted to mention that. I didn't get to it.
But yeah, Cooper nailed it. Brutal blow that he's on screen. You get to see his, and he does have as like not to take anything away from his voice performance in Star Wars, but he has some emotional beats in Field of Dreams too. So he gets there in that movie also. So I would go with Field of Dreams also. I can't believe we're going to sweep with Field of Dreams here. But
you'd think it'd be a sweep, but you know what? I'm the actual judge, and I'm going to go with... No, I'm not. It's Field of Dreams, guys. That was a fantastic argument.
I'm just calling BS on that, whatever.
Dan definitely gets the point. And basically, Yusuf, you set him up. You set him up in so many ways, and then he stepped up and knocked him down, which is what you got to do. Both of you guys focused on your own films where Dan took shots at everyone, and I think very effectively Dan gets the second point there. So good job, Dan. You will have control of round 2 as well, and you are in the lead 2-1 over Yusuf. Question number 2, what order would you like to go with?
Well, I still want to go last, but we'll switch it up this time, and we'll go Ryan, Yusuf, me.
Ryan, Yusuf, you. All right. Let me just switch to another page here. All right, lots of notes. Here we go. Round number 2. This one comes from _ Kim Hanley. Hi, Kim. Thank you very much for watching the show live and for submitting this question. We are going to fight the best movie that takes place during the summer or summer vacation. And this is going to be a really good fight. We're going to go Ryan, Yusuf, and Dan. Ryan, what did you pick?
Okay, the classic coming-of-age film, Stand By Me. It's a story about 4 young men who are just on an adventure to look at a dead body, but along the way, they grow, they develop. There's a lot of heart to this film. There's great performances in this film. It is one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations, and it just kind of encapsulates what summer as a young person, which is to spend time with your friends and to grow from a child to an adult. And that's why I love Stand By Me, and I think Stand By Me is the right answer.
A great pick. Yusuf, you're number 2. What'd you go for?
So this was one of the hardest questions to answer, actually. And the reason why I say that is because what is a summer to each of us individually? Maybe when you were a kid, you identify with a group of friends having an adventure, or that one camp that your parents forced you to go to. As a teenager, maybe you identify with, wanting to branch out from your parents, hanging out with your friends, maybe falling in love. And now as an adult, you maybe identify more with the family aspect, reconnecting with your wife and your kids, and just getting away from the day-to-day life of your work, or your kids getting away from the semesters of school. So that's why I chose What About Bob, because it manages to tackle all of those aspects in one nice wrapped up bubble of this incredible odd couple comedy between Bill Murray, this OCD hypochondriac, driving insane, this successful psychic doctor, and Richard Dreyfuss. So that's why I chose What About Bob.
Also a great movie. And finally, Dan, what did you pick?
Well, first off, before I go into what I picked, I just want to acknowledge clearly the King of Summer is Richard Dreyfuss from all of our picks.
Yep.
Because when I was thinking about all these, I'm like, oh yeah, Richard Dreyfuss. But
yeah, Richard Dreyfuss is the through line.
He is the through line. Just
Ohio for the first question, Dreyfuss for this one.
Yeah. So a few different decades, but guys, it's Jaws. You can take any kind of definition of what you want for a summer movie, but it's still going to be Jaws. You can answer numerous questions with that movie. The entire plot hinges on the fact that they need to keep the beaches open for summer for tourism. And then everything else that happens with that movie, not only that, but it comes out in the summer, becomes the first blockbuster ever. There's so much more I want to say about this movie, but to me, it was kind of an open and shut thing where it's just you don't have Jaws without summer.
All right, so as you guys go into this fight, I just want to remind you of the question. It's going to be best movie. So at the end of the day, make sure you're arguing for the best movie here. Go. It's all you. Fight.
All right, so I know that it's commonly known that Jaws is like the best movie ever made, but if you watch it now, that movie is extremely boring, and it doesn't have any outside of the shark attacks. Like if you mention Jaws to somebody, they don't go, "Oh yeah, that movie about." No, it's just the shark attacks, and anything in between any of the shark attacks is nothing. It means nothing. It's just boring. There's no story arc. There's no character development. We start with Brody as the sheriff stuck in a situation where there's a shark and he has to kill it, and the movie ends with Brody killing the shark and laughing in the water, despite him just witnessing one of his friends devoured in front of him. Like there's nothing else to attach from that movie outside of just cool shark attacks.
Yeah, and Yusuf, you see, it seems nice that you brought up how it's like maybe summer's different for everybody, and maybe you identify, now as an adult, summer sucks. Most of us work the whole summer, so for me to go back in time to a time where you don't have the responsibility of life. It's just trying to enjoy your summer before it's over, because Stand By Me is set during Labor Day weekend. That's the last summer weekend. You have to enjoy that time with your friends before it's all gone. And Dan, I like that you bring up that it's all about keeping the beaches clean. That movie's more a character piece than about keeping the beaches clean. I'm sorry. And it did horrible things for sharks. Before I ever saw the movie Jaws, I was afraid of sharks because my parents were afraid of sharks because of that movie, and it's an unnecessary fear. You're more likely to get hit by a car than to be attacked by a shark.
Hold on, I'm writing. I do have the response.
I didn't want to forget and with What About Bob, it's an okay movie that, in my opinion, because I deal with a lot of people with mental, handicaps, it doesn't really handle people with mental disabilities right. It just makes them a cartoonish character, and that's not fair to a lot of these people that are struggling, that they get $20 a week in assistance. They come see me at the branch and they get their cash. The movie just tries to paint the sad people that need help. And the movie has a weak ending. That's straight up quoted from the great Leonard Maltin. Bad ending.
Okay, so to right away piggyback a little bit off what Ryan was saying is What About Bob? I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple months or couple years we get one of those like YouTube recut trailers where they're cutting it into a horror movie, because it kind of is a horror movie. It's not really a comedy. Like, you watch Richard Dreyfuss's descent into madness to the point where he straps a bomb and he tries to blow up Bill Murray. Like, I don't really consider that funny. Like, sure, as a kid, I chuckled at it because I didn't there was slapstick and I'm like, that's amusing, but it's like, that doesn't hold up as a good movie. Like, it's basically someone looking for help, someone denying them help and putting themselves forward. And as far as you guys coming after Jaws, I mean, Yusuf even said it's the best movie. This is one of those movies that they're going to talk about for years. And the fact that you're saying, well, I'd still say it's one of the best. Then you can argue if you want. But
I'm just defending Yusuf because he didn't say it was the best. He said it's considered the best, which I don't think either of us would say that.
I mean, I'll take it. And that's the thing. As far as you kind of explained how great this movie was, and it ruined sharks, but that's also a logical thing. You realize you have a car crash is probably way exponentially higher than plane crashes, but there's still movies about plane crashes. There's still movies about shark attacks. The reason we're still talking about this movie 40 years later is because it was so good. The fact that you're saying there was no plot or no through line is also kind of laughable, because Roy Scheider is dealing the entire time about having his son out in these waters, and he has to deal with that. So it is definitely a character piece about him, and it becomes even more of a character piece when they get onto the boat. So the whole first 2/3 of the movie is just them talking everything about the beach and how they're going to keep it open or closed or opened or closed. And then you get to that third of the boat that third of the movie where it's really well earned. And I mean, like this, it checks all the boxes. Like it's a drama, it's a comedy. You laugh at this movie. It's a suspense, it's a thriller, it's a horror. So you're getting everything you want in one summer movie that all revolves around that.
And it's boring, but
it's boring.
It's really hard to get through it. I mean, honestly, I love movies, and I literally have a website. It's called Why I Love Movies, and I really like going back and watching old movies. And this movie, when I rewatched it again, it was just so painfully long, and it's not long in runtime. It's long and just there's nothing happening outside of
it's poorly paced. I think is what Yusuf is trying to say. Is it doesn't have that great of a, it's not that long of a runtime, but it feels like a 3-hour movie.
I don't care. I'll watch a 3-hour movie of Jaws any day of the week compared to a lot of the stuff we get nowadays.
That's fair. But as you know, circling back to What About Bob, the aspects that I love more about this movie really is the family dynamic, how the kids grow up and find that weird uncle in Bob. The kid learns to swim. The girl branches out and makes new friends, and they start sailing. The wife reconnects with her family once again during family time dinner, and it's it's obviously an over the top slapstick comedy that you can nitpick like a Three Stooges movie or Charlie Chaplin movie when it depended of an over exaggeration, but in the middle of it all, it's a nice summer movie that tackles that summer feeling that you had growing up as a kid, or that summer feeling that you had growing up as a teenager, and where you're just forced to be in a situation with your family, and then you end up loving every single second that you spend with them.
Except the fact that the father is pushed to near insanity. Everybody else gets to have this summer of growth, except poor Richard Dreyfuss. He's ready to go insane. So I don't think that's fair to the family dynamic you're pointing out. Because what you want the whole family to get the benefit. Richard Dreyfuss isn't getting the benefit.
So Ryan, let's go do some final thoughts here. Why is your movie the best Richard Dreyfuss movie? I mean, summer vacation movie, because that's really where we're at this point. Why is your movie the best summer movie of the three?
So, everybody can have different, but unless you're a part of that illustrious 1%, summer for the majority of us as an adult is working. Summer is at its best when we are young and we are out of school and we are having, maybe, I didn't have a lot of friends as a kid, but I still loved my summers to get away, to have my own adventures. With Stand By Me, it's these four group of these young men who are having to deal with their own problems, the loss of a brother, never knowing your father. There's just a lot of things. And I do have some humor in Stand By Me. Let's not forget that fantastic about the kid who ate the pie and then puked everywhere. So I have the coming of age aspect. I have the drama. I have a little bit of the tension with the bully who's after them too. Stand By Me has everything. I love Stand By Me.
All right. Yusuf.
So the reason why I picked What About Bob is, outside of the fact that it's one of the funniest movies ever made in my eyes, with one of the greatest comedians to ever grace the screen in Bill Murray. It answers the question, what is the best summer movie, at least for me. You didn't ask what's the best movie that happens to take place in summer. That's at least how I didn't read it. And for me, summer means, fun, waves, and it's not and you're telling me, your best summer movie is the time where you found a dead body and you ruined your friendships because one of the kids doesn't even want to talk with the other people because it only reminds them of that death and the realization that you're mortal and at any moment you're going to die and some random kids are going to find you in the middle of the field. That's your summer movie. And the other movie literally ruined the waters for people. They hated the waters. They wouldn't even take a bath. And so your summer movie is that one time that you watched a kid get killed in front of you by a shark. So that's why I picked What About Bob. It's happiness, it's funny, and it's just summer in my eyes.
All right, Dan, just give me 1 second. I'm going to go hug my kids, and then I'll come back.
Then we can talk Jaws.
So Dan, close this out once again. Why Jaws is the best of the summer movies.
I mean, the fact that you guys keep dwelling and coming back to the shark thing is just showing how effective this is as a movie, and how like there really hasn't been a thing. If you guys have problems with sharks, that's kind of on you. And if the movie made you feel that, then it did its job to make you feel. When we talk about What About Bob, you're saying that it's a great summer movie, but I'm thinking like really what I remember from that film is just being bogged down by the relationships and the dynamics, how it comes down to these people interacting with each other, not necessarily like getting into the mood of summer. And Stand By Me, that's what I really want to watch in a summer movie, is young kids having complex problems and then having their friendships fractured by the end of the film. It's just dwelling, and it kind of brings me down. And it's like, sure, it's a coming of age, but it's like, at what cost? So, I mean, it comes back to me. It's like, it's Jaws, regardless of whether or not you're still feeling something in this town in the summer. And it shows literally everyone else is having a good time. They all run out of the water at times. But I mean, there's still majority of those scenes on the beach. You're seeing happy people, and you see a handful of deaths. And it is a happy ending because they do kill the shark.
There we go. Time. Well done, everybody. Let's go check some facts. Ryan, what do we got?
The only real fact being abused in this fight is that Jaws is boring. Like, you guys are so hot right now. Like, don't in Jaws, you are fucking doing it wrong, okay? I'm sorry. What I liked. I think Yusuf has a problem with his argument because the better pick for him would have been The Great Outdoors. It's just an overall better movie. It's got the same dynamic, but it's just a better film. So I think that's the problem he's coming with. I think Dan obviously has in Jaws, but I think the summer thing, it makes the mayor a really great villain. Summer does, but as far as the rest of it goes, it's more about man and shark, and it could kind of happen at any time. But I loved Ryan's points about boys becoming men and a journey that means something. And so I'm going to go with Stand By Me.
Nice. Kimber.
Yeah, I am 100% on board with Brian. I was also heated at the way people were speaking about Jaws in this round. Like, y'all are lucky you weren't fighting me on this one, because I was crawling in my skin in this chair. Like, I was about to throw my couch. But yeah, I 100% also agree with that. I thought Ryan was really strong on this round, and that he had several different points he was making, and that he did a good job making them, and that just he thought a little more creatively about like what summer meant to him, and kind of made it like this really like personal argument. Not to mention that Stand By Me is totally a good movie. So, you know, all that being said and done, fighting Jaws is really hard, but I think Ryan crushed it on this round. Stand By Me.
Well done. So that leaves it up to me. And you know, when you have the pick that you're just like mic drop, it actually is extra pressure for you, because you're just like, this is the winner. I mean, come on. And it almost puts more work on you to defend it. And one of the things that I did like about Ryan's argument is that when it came time to fight, he didn't just go, oh, Jaws, I got to beat Jaws. He actually took on both movies right away from the beginning, which I actually respected. That's a smart way to fight. Because you don't want to leave anyone out. Both Ryan and Yusuf did say that Jaws is boring, which we all know is bullshit. So I agree, that is not a real argument. And as facts go, we're crossing that one out. We're not counting that one. See, now for me, I leaned a little bit more towards Dan, because Dan, I thought, gave a better feeling about. I didn't hear enough about Stand By Me during the fight. And Dan, to me, gave a better argument for Stand By Me in his closing than I thought Ryan was giving during his fight. However, listening to Kimber and Brian sort of added in a bit of the feeling that I didn't necessarily get, but I now, as I was reflecting on them and what they were saying, I kind of agree on this one. And so at the end of the day, I'm actually going to agree with Brian and Kimber and give Ryan the point, because he did fight very well that round. So good job, Ryan.
God!
So
well done.
God! Everyone who's offended, I apologize. Just when you're fighting against Jaws,
you gotta fight.
Right, you gotta fight against Jaws. I mean, you have no choice. At the end of the day, that's what you gotta do. Let's go social. Don't forget to turn off your microphone, or turn on your microphone rather. Kimber, what was the social saying?
Yeah, mostly a bunch of suggestions for what people would have picked. Dub as well as Joe would have went with Wet Hot American Summer. Tom was liking 500 Days of Summer. Ashley wanted to go Dirty Dancing. Janine, she liked The Way Way Back. And TJ just wanted to say that John Candy is the ultimate summer movie dad.
He is.
Damn right.
It's John Candy.
I knew Brian would like that.
I love John Candy. All right, so here's where
John Candy is. Oh, I miss him so much.
I know, right? All right, guys. So we have Dan with 2 points, Yusef with 1 point, Ryan with 1 point. This is anyone's game. There are still 3 points left on the table. We're going into the final speed round question. This one will be chosen by Dan. Let me reread the 3 remaining ones for you. We have That's Incredible, I Love the 80s, or Super Television.
Let's do That's Incredible.
That's incredible. All right, guys, you ready? Who is the most talented actor or actress to appear in the Incredibles franchise?
I don't want to take the obvious.
Oh, Holly Hunter.
Holly Hunter.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
Shit.
That's the only problem with not taking some of the obvious ones is now you have to remember who else is in the movie.
I don't know the voice actors that well. Can I Google the voice actors to
you
pick
can tell
one?
me who you want, and I can help you.
I don't know their names. If I look at the character in my head, I'm trying to remember their voice.
What character?
Wait, I thought we were talking about like career outside of The Incredibles. That's why I'm struggling.
You have to pick a character. You have to pick an actor.
From
the
voice of,
give you 5. 4.
Oh, in the second one, the villain, the guy who was the founder of the company, the guy from Better Call Saul. I can't think of his
Bob Odenkirk.
I'll do Bob Odenkirk.
Okay. Then we've got Holly Hunter from Yusef. He'll go first, with Samuel L. Jackson going second for Dan, and Bob Odenkirk for Ryan going third. Yusef, time begins whenever you start.
Holly Hunter has a vast career for her going for herself, but the reason why I chose her is because in contrast to Samuel Jackson and Bob Odenkirk, she's recently having a peak right now, just with The Big Sick, and her acting was one of the best performances of that year. You can see her really going into strive, and she really demonstrated.
Time. All right, Samuel L. Jackson.
You want to talk about a vast career? Let's talk about Samuel L. Jackson for a minute. Ever since he said, "Hold on to your butts" in Jurassic Park, that guy has been working. Samuel L. Jackson has been perpetually peaking for the last 20 years, so much so that he started back then. He got nominated for an Oscar for Pulp Fiction. He's so aware of his career. He can do Snakes on a Plane, and it still won't even cripple him because he signed on just because of how the title of that screenplay was.
Bob Odenkirk, Ryan.
Bob Odenkirk has given some of the two of the best performances I've ever seen in television between, Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. I love his character that he created, and he does a lot of great voice work. I'm obviously blanking on some of his films, but I just love Bob Odenkirk. I think Bob Odenkirk needs to be in more films. He needs to be Sam Jackson level.
Okay, rebuttals from Yusef.
Samuel Jackson has become a caricature of his own. It's been years since he's actually acted and not been Samuel Jackson on screen. Bob Odenkirk only has one note performance, which is Better Call Saul. Holly Hunter has a vast, rich.
Dan.
You ask most people on the street, no one are going to know these other two actors. Ryan literally just said he wishes Bob Odenkirk was Samuel L. Jackson. That's the level that you are at when you get an actor of his caliber.
Ryan.
When I brought up Samuel L. Jackson for Bob Odenkirk, I wanted to see him in more stuff because he is fantastic. Sam Jackson is a character of himself, and Holly Hunter just isn't for me. She hasn't impressed me in anything.
Ooh. This is going to be interesting. Brian, we're going to start with you.
Oh, fuck this.
Not a lot of not a lot of facts, obviously, with a speed round like this. I will throw some. I think Bob Odenkirk's a really interesting choice. If only Ryan had had me to fight him, I could have mentioned how he was also an Emmy-winning writer for the Ben Stiller Show and Saturday Night Live, and created classic characters like the motivational speaker.
And Bob and David is also excellent.
Yeah, so
I do think Yusuf had the best counter argument where he said Sam Jackson is prolific, but he's always kind of playing as the same character. He's always playing him even as far back as Jurassic Park. There's not a lot of character there beyond Sam Jackson. So I think I'm going to go with Holly Hunter kind of by default.
Kimber?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Brian on this one too. I think that arguably Ryan had the best choice, but
I don't. Yeah,
they were really rough on him this round. It happens. Don't worry. I do think that Yusuf did a good job of, mentioning a lot of stuff that Holly Hunter did, and I'm with Brian. I also would go Yusuf here.
I think the mistake for me, Dan, was saying that no one knows Bob Odenkirk and Holly Hunter the way they know Samuel L. Jackson in that respect, because I think that was actually a negative in that, obviously, especially with the question, that they have really good careers. I was concerned that we wouldn't hear enough about Holly Hunter, but what I really liked about Yusuf's argument was that Holly Hunter is relevant now. She's coming into her own as an actress, and she's had two really big recent performances, and Samuel L. Jackson is still being Samuel L. Jackson. So it was close, but Yusuf, I think, did nail it for me. So Yusuf gets the point. Well done.
Thank you.
All right. That means
the correct answer is Brad Bird, by the way.
No one's picking Brad Bird.
I forgot that he did the voice of her.
How was the question, Jack? How was the question worded? Was it best actor or
what is the most talented actor or actress to appear in the Incredibles franchise?
Talent is wide spanning, so
yeah, I would have gone Brad Bird then.
It could have gone any way, but I certainly
could have come in handy. You could have played that because it's most talented.
What I liked about this question was
but
that
I don't know enough about him. I just like him and stuff.
I figured Jackson would come up, but I was like, there are plenty of people in this franchise that definitely be used.
I wasn't touching Jackson. I wasn't gonna do it. That's why it was so hard for me.
No Jason Lee fans out there, I guess.
I would have went Jason Lee personally.
What was the last thing Jason Lee really did, though? Let's get to the next round.
He was busy with his TV show, and he's been in every Alvin movie for the last 5 or 6 years.
Is that a good
because
thing?
I have kids.
It's a good thing for his bank account, I bet.
So here's where we're at, guys. Columbus Dan has 2. Cincinnati Yusuf has 2. Ryan from Dayton has 1. No one is out because the mystery round is next, and it is a 2-point round. That means anybody can still win this fight. Everyone is still in it. But Yusuf, you will be deciding who goes first, second, and third in the mystery round.
Ryan first, Dan second, me last.
Okay. Guys, this one's a complicated one, so I'm going to explain it here after I read it, just in case people at home are curious. Movie studios have this is a fictitious world where movie studios have finally decided to end all of their cinematic universes. No more MCU, no more DCEU, Jurassic Park is done, no more Fast and the Furious. Every franchise has ended. Let's just take a moment, and Star Wars is done. Let's just breathe. Isn't this wonderful?
You mean we're not arguing Last Jedi here? Because that's what I was going to do.
We're free from franchises forever and for a moment anyway. Because we're going to pitch one. So your job is to pitch a brand new cinematic universe based on any movie ever, including movies that are in a current franchise. You're welcome to go back to one and start a new movie cinematic universe. But up to now, everything else is done. So I did give them the note that don't pitch a movie scene by scene. We don't want another Sam on our hands. So we want the general plot and direction. I'm just throwing some shit at you. I love you, Sam. We just want some general plot. Where is the story going to go? Try not to get bogged down because pitch rounds can swallow you up. So we are going to try to keep things still moving here. But Ryan, you're going to get to go first. Dan, you'll go second, and Yusuf, you'll go third. None of the fighters know what the others have picked. Ryan, tell us about your new cinematic universe.
So when you're creating a cinematic universe, you want some relevance. So I think that eliminates a lot of the older films. You want to take a movie because it has to start with a movie that's already came out. So you want to start with something relevant, but not too big that will overshadow it. So that's why I went with Thor Ragnarok to be essentially the Iron Man of what I'm calling the cosmic Marvel universe, because my biggest issue with the MCU as it currently stands is it's the Earth universe with some occasional adventures. So it's like, let's really embrace the universe side of it. We are going to take the tones, and I have one slate. Ragnarok is the beginning of it. Our second film in this universe is going to be called Valkyrie, The Broken Path. This will take Tessa Thompson into the lead role as Valkyrie as she takes the remaining Asgardians who were spared by Thanos on a journey to resettle New Asgard. So it's a journey, it's a finding the next planet, and the villain of this film is going to be a classic Thor character, Beta Ray Bill, Beta Ray Bill is enslaved, and he is after the Asgardians. We move from there. We're going to add the second Captain Marvel film. I'm going to call this Captain Marvel Finishing the Fight, along with Miss Marvel and She-Hulk leave Earth to finish off her fight with the Kree Empire, to only find out there is a bigger threat out there. As we move on, now we're going to break away from the MCU mold, and we're going to have our first R-rated film within a cinematic universe. I think it can be done, and I'm going to call this Hela Becoming Death. I don't know if it's been 100% confirmed, but I believe Hela dies at the end of Ragnarok. This is going to be, she is sent to the MCU equivalent of Hell. She is going to steal the power of death from the Grim Reaper and become the newest incarnation of the goddess, a true goddess of death, not the one she was parading as in Ragnarok. My next film, that's the last standalone, it's Guardians of the Galaxy Redemption. Instead of Volume 3, I'm calling it Redemption. It's about the Guardians. I'm assuming that they'll get brought back in some way, shape, or form as the Asgardians, trying to help Thor find New Asgard, because Thor, with his Stormbreaker, he can Bifrost, but he has to know where it is. Since he doesn't know where it is, they have to go into space to find it. And my final pitch, and then I'm done. Sorry for taking up so much time. The Cosmic Avengers, where all of these characters we've brought up are teaming up together to take on Hela and her pawn, the Spartax Empire, as she is trying to build an empire out of the craziness that was since up Avengers down. Thank you.
All right, Dan.
So I lost Ryan a little bit at the end of that, but I think I got the gist of it, just cutting in and out. However, when you were talking expanded universe, there's one thing that a lot of these different ones have in common. Like, you have great world building, you have lots of space travel, you have solid stories, you have something that can literally be told and retold, and you can go into a different part of the universe, into a different pocket, and you can find something else. You can see a different world, that's why I really want to see The Fifth Element as an expanded universe. And I'm doing a little bit different, whereas Ryan took one and he decided to go from there using that as a basis. I want to see things that happened before this, because you're getting so many rich and fully formed characters. I want to see the Corbin Dallas first movie standalone, where he's with his buddy Finger. They go on so many space missions together, and how that relationship develops to where, like, now he's his boss and something happened where Corbin's down on his luck, and now he has to work for his pal Finger from the army. I want to see a standalone Lilu film, like way back when, for maybe the first time that they had to defeat this ultimate evil that just popped up in the middle of the universe. Yeah, I really want to see a Ruby Rod standalone movie. If you think about Solo, which, I will unfortunately remind us all for a second, one of the things everybody loved was Lando. And who else would be a great person to do as like a pansexual radio host other than Ruby Rod, who's kind of like Lando on speed, where he's just going 100 miles a minute. And you can only imagine what kind of environment he was raised in to come out like that. And I mean, come on, like, Zorg, that character in and of itself is just so that I would love to see a story like a sci-fi mob movie where you have Zorg and you have his partner, where Zorg stabs his partner in the back and winds up building this massive empire that they started together, and Zorg winds up taking over in the end. And it's all done like the brainchild of Luc Besson. This was right in his wheelhouse when the first element came up, the fifth element, and it all can build up to that movie. You can either redo it or you can do this whole expanded universe before it, because that one movie was already so big and so vast that you can get a lot of mileage out of that one concept.
Now, what's really going to be great here is that no one knows what anybody picked. There are no repeats, but I think Yusuf is going to have an interesting choice for us. Yusuf, what did you pick?
So Dan is right. We need more Luc Besson, but he chose the incorrect movie. My pick is Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets. And the reason is why the heavy lifting has already occurred in terms of the world building that has happened. There's some universal truths regarding that movie. One, the aliens are incredible during the opening sequence of that movie. Two, the visual effects are, bar none, one of the most creative and visually satisfying in terms of blockbuster as of 2 years ago. And three, the humans suck. So we move it 30 years into the future, and where we can easily recast the Valerians and the Lorelines. But I wanna be able to explore different genres within this world, because this is a immense world rich with stories, different characters, different motivations, and different stories to tell. But we need a little bit of a through line. So my first movie is gonna be a murder mystery movie, in where it's gonna be centering around the murder of the leader of the market that we see in Valerian. We follow Valerian, now recasted by a different actor, later to be named. I don't know who yet. It doesn't matter. And he recruits a race called the Arisum Corum. I'm sorry if I butchered that name. I'll probably get at least one letter in the mail. But they have the reputation of being the most traveled species in the known universe. So they are basically an encyclopedia of knowledge of the species and the planets. So he's recruited almost just to help out Valerian to solve this murder mystery.
Can I ask you a quick question about that? Is that a name from the comic series that you just gave us, or is that something you made up?
That's a name from the comic series. That's why I said I'm gonna get a letter in the.
No, I get you. Okay, cool. I'm with you now. Go ahead.
All right, the second one is just gonna be like a heist movie. We see in the beginning of the movie, robotic jellyfish coming in and being greeted into the city. We're gonna have like a heist movie around those robotic jellies. They're gonna go deep down into the water, one of the water planets, and try to rob one of the most rare resources of natural power deep in the waters. And it's gonna be up to the farmers that we see in the beginning of the movie, that they have like the coils back and they're glowing bright blue. They are the farmers and the cultivators and the protectors of this movie. So it's going to be up to them to stop the robotic jellyfishes. The third one is going to be like a horror type movie. It's going to center around Valerian, and it's going to be an investigation of the sudden rise of patients in one of the biggest asylums in the city. And then we later know that it's due to one of the races that are known as telepathic and kinetic, to just mind melding people into seeing images and things that are not there, and just driving them slowly crazy, trying to get out all their secrets and powers. And the main through line is going to be like our main bad guys. It's going to be the Glamopods that was played by Rihanna in this movie. They're rising up and infiltrating all of the races. Obviously, I'm not going to cast Rihanna at all, but I just want the power of the species, and where they can transform into any other alien race, and they're slowly infiltrating all of the races, trying to take over the entire city and taking control away from the police that is led by Valerian.
Guys, we have three very different style movies here, so well done. Let's get into it. Let's fight. Who's got the better pitch?
So
my biggest.
Go ahead. No. I already talked for like 5 minutes. You go ahead first.
Well, I started it and was the longest, so you can go, sir.
So my biggest
talk,
my
or,
my biggest issue. I have like two big qualms with both of you guys right now. One is Ryan is pitching another Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're off the heels of a 10-year long build up to Thanos, and now you want me to reinvest again on the same characters and the same thing, but now you're just saying, look at the stars in the background, they're in space. And the biggest issue I have with Dan is that it's just prequels, and prequels are devoid of tension and anything, because you know already where we're going. You know that Dallas Corbin is not going to die no matter how hard the situations are. You know that Lilu is going to come back even if she dies in her movie and she's reborn again. It doesn't matter, because you already know the period at the end of the sentence. So the sentence becomes almost meaningless. It's just, and that's one of the biggest issues that Solo had. They put Chewie and Han in situations where you're supposed to go like, oh my God, are they gonna escape? Is that train gonna explode them? But it doesn't matter, because we already know what's gonna happen in the end.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, mostly because you see the technology in these films that come out, and yeah, you don't know how many times these characters have died, been reborn. There's still that tension there. They literally show you in the first movie. So when you're saying there's no stakes, then they could come back. Sure, they can do that, but that's the kind of world building it is. And that's why I like that, because that's the thing about The Fifth Element, is these characters are already fully formed, and you already care about them with a few minutes of screen time, which is a much better thing than Valerian. Valerian 100% shit the bed, and it gave you some fantastic visuals, a great opening sequence, and that's about it. This is why I wanted to go to The Fifth Element, because you got Luc Besson in his prime, where you're not only getting these great visuals, but you're getting great storytelling as well. Luc Besson, like, he pretty much bankrupted a company doing Valerian, because the movie itself is terrible. Like, it's cool to look at, but that's about all it's got going for it. And I definitely agree with you, Joseph. Like, why, if you have all the options of films, why just go right back to the MCU? It's like, cool, it's going to be a very similar tone, but now we're looking at the stars. And like, you're right, we got 10 years to build here, and I really don't see a point in going back to that same well. And I will say this, I love the MCU. They're doing a fantastic job. But it's like, why would I want to see that again, like literally in a different space?
And now I will defend my choice, come at both of y'all. We're going back to this well because it's a proven success, and my pitch for the Cosmic MCU is to fix some of Marvel's biggest problems, which is lack of female leads, Earth-centric stories, and broadening the universe. And they have proven with Guardians of the Galaxy and Black Panther, you can take these characters that in comic book history are B-list and C-list and really make them explode. And I'm sorry, but for both of you, there's a big glaring flare, and his name is Luc Besson. We're not going to get the Luc Besson of Leon the Professional. We're not going to get the Luc Besson of The Fifth Element. We're going to get the Luc Besson that shit the bed and did some of the worst casting I've ever seen in a big budget film. And I think when you're trying to create a cinematic universe, relevance has to matter. And for The Fifth Element, it has a core audience of like loyal followers, but it's not relevant to this day. And City of a Thousand Planets was a massive bomb. People didn't go out to see it. I know Brian's going to hate me for this. It's not that good of a movie. It's a visually pleasing film, but Valerian is just, you don't want to start your universe with something as bad as Valerian. When you're starting my universe with Ragnarok, you're building off of the great work by Taika Waititi. Let him, along with Kevin Feige, create this cosmic entity. Let's be colorful. Let's embrace it. The MCU never embraced it except towards the end of the run that we're in. I want to be.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So, are the actor is Thor played by Hemsworth?
Yes, we're keeping the slate going. Thor is going to become more of an Odin Thor, where he is the supreme. Like since Anthony Hopkins passed, his character passed. Thor has to become the new Odin when he returns to New Asgard. That's part of the journey of my Guardians pitch.
So the Guardians come back. It's the same actors playing those roles and stuff like
that. Oh yeah, no, these are great because I don't want to miss out on Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. I want to see I want to have the Captain Marvel sequel include We want to see Kamala Khan, and I want to see a She-Hulk, and I think that would be a great, because you could. I am just trying to rectify some of the glaring issues with the MCU by adding some more female talent to the focus, by diversifying it a little bit, and actually making it a universe and not Earth with some side universe.
So you're essentially pitching what's already happening.
Yeah,
Captain
exactly.
Marvel is already coming out. It's gonna be it's gonna tackle the cosmic. They already said that they want to go cosmic. They already bought Fox, so they can go even Fantastic Four into the space. So you're just pitch.
Guys, I have to stop you because it's time for a plot twist.
No.
What? What's happening? Oh no! That's right. I have this little thing I came up with. It's called a plot twist. I've done it in a couple episodes, and I'm doing it right now. That's right. There's a plot twist. All of these universes are now in the same universe. All of your movies take place in the same universe. Go.
God help me.
Essentially, all of them perfectly fit in the same universe. That's perfectly fine.
Jack, you lucked out with our answers, because if I would have pitched my other ones, it wouldn't have worked. But I just take your best foot forward. Thor Ragnarok.
So real quick. So we're going to make this our final thoughts. We're going to start with Ryan on this. So Ryan, I've gotten everybody's basic.
Could it be Yusuf, Dan, and Ryan? I just got done talking.
Well, no, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to go in the same order that Yusuf picked, basically. So I want you to give final thoughts. Include all of these universes in one universe as we go forward here for your final thoughts.
Oh, for God's sake. So now we have the Cosmic MCU French edition. The best thing, Mary, I guess the best thing about it could be the visuals of, let's bring the visuals of these and, expect, this is great, because now instead of like having to, for me to like use some tired comment repeated, let's put them in instead of the Spartak Empire, which is a minor empire in the MCU. Let's create some French alien empire. This plays into it. I want to be a little silly with my MCU, and what's sillier than the Luc Besson French alien universe? Let's go with it. Let's have fun with it, with the focus of my the MCU films I pitched, and we'll have in the off years we'll have these Luc Besson styled universe movies included into it.
Dan.
So with all of these different universes being under one roof now, you're still going to run into a little bit of an issue where you're pretty much just doubling down. You're getting more MCU. You're getting something that they were already going towards anyway. So it's like the next 5-6 years, what was going to happen in the MCU is going to happen anyway. So it's not like that's an original idea. You're fixing problems that they were already working on. Like, you're not really rectifying anything. And if you're going to do this, I will say I love Thor Ragnarok. I would 100% rather base my cinematic universe and what we're all on the Fifth Element. And if you're going back and you're seeing that's the first movie out of all of these and everything else kind of comes after that, that's literally your core movie. You're going to get the everyman. You're going to get Bruce Willis. Yeah, I'll say it, at the height of his powers. And you can follow that. You can follow the standalones. You can have him going in and out of any of these other stories because he is more or less being that quasi diehard John McClane character, but set in that science. Like, I want to see, it's a similar homage, seeing the Fifth Element, and you're seeing Bruce Willis do this stuff, all this kind of John McClane action, and it's really right before, in the mid 2000s when he starts just not caring and not doing anything. But you're seeing him go through all these, and you're seeing all that. And as far as Valerian goes, you can easily weave that person into any of it. I still want to see all these characters pop up, and I can take any of the other things. I can take the brightness of Thor Ragnarok. I can take the world building of Valerian, excuse me. And that's the thing. Luc Besson may have been the originator of this idea, but he's not going to be the Kevin Feige helming it. This is going to be one of those things where you take that tried and true proven MCU formula, and what you do is you give it to other young directors or tested directors, and you give it to great story writers. And what you do is you can weave these all together pretty seamlessly if you do it right.
All right. And Yusuf, close us out.
All right. So we all know that the Fifth Element was Luc Besson's first attempt to actually do Valerian. So it's easily, you can easily rope them in, because one of the species that appears in the Fifth Element, which is the ones that protect the pyramids, actually appear in the opening sequence of Valerian. if you really want all of this universes going together, the easiest point in where all of them meet is actually Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets. You could have one of the cosmic superheroes visit that Valerian holding station and explore that world within the visual effects and the beauty of Luc Besson. But the few attacks that I got from you guys regarding Valerian was it shit the bed and it was a blockbuster mess. We're gonna go back down to the roots because he already built the world, so we don't need this. It's over the top adventure that Valerian went through and going into each of the worlds that is already pre-built. So we're gonna have a small scaled down version, focusing on the species, focusing on a theme, and focusing on a genre within that universe. And we can easily do one of those crappy prequels that Dan is pitching.
Thanks.
Wow, nice little one at the end there. So, Brian, I don't know what you have as far as facts for this, but let me throw it to you first.
This is going to be tough for Brian.
Yeah, I was gonna say facts. There's not a lot. I guess it is fact that both Valerian and The Fifth Element were both kind of financial flops. So, I mean, you can take that into account however you will. I think everybody kind of canceled each other out on the crossover. I don't think anybody. I do think these movies kind of naturally could fit together. So nothing jumped out at me to like swing me one way or the other. I guess if I had to say, the problem with most of this is just that not even that Ryan's is a kind of continuation. It feels like what we might get anyway, but just that at least two of these are basically adaptations again. We're like taking another comic book universe and moving forward in it. Valerian's the same thing. Even if you choose storylines, you're still kind of adapting. I like that Fifth Element is its own thing and kind of comes from a place of, and you can even have Valerian already. I already was thinking you could kind of weigh that one in. Plus, I like the naming convention of being like, you have the previous Corbin Dallas, and you call that Corbin Dallas, the First Element. And then the next movie is like Ruby Rod, the Second Element.
God.
And then
we got a prequel list on our hands.
I think I just killed Dan.
No, I love it.
So your point is for Dan.
I'm leaning towards Dan. Yes.
Okay. Let's
go.
Oh, sorry.
Valerian was, should have been better.
I think we all agree that.
Okay, yeah. So there were some points made all around that I like. Yusuf attacking the prequels does that held strongly in the back of my mind the whole time, because I also think that prequels kind of have no stakes, which is my biggest problem with Dan's argument, because I definitely like the idea of a Fifth Element universe a lot more than a Valerian universe. I'm just having a hard time balancing which one's more important to me there. It's also hard because Dan has that damn ASMR voice and he's hypnotizing me every time he's talking.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I think Ryan gave himself a really hard uphill battle with this pitch, and that they kind of, beat him up a little bit this round. But those are how I'm feeling about Yusuf and Dan's arguments. Take from that what you will.
So I unfortunately, Ryan, I do kind of mirror their thoughts in that we took that big breath at the beginning, and then we went right back into Marvel Universe, and we continued right where we left off.
No, because I should have realized my audience is sick of the MCU that's sitting in front of me. So that's what I should have.
That's not true. I love Marvel Universe actually quite a bit.
I know you guys do, but if you're really about to pick crap French sci-fi over my pitch, it blows my mind. It's crap.
Tell you that I love both of these movies for goofy, crappy reasons, but French has nothing to do with it. Luc Besson is a director that does different work that we haven't seen before, and it's okay that both of these are choice. It's the arguments that determine who the winner is. So I'm looking at a prequel series, and I'm looking at a genre series, a prequel series from Dan, a genre series from Yusuf, and based on two different Luc Besson properties, which I thought was really interesting when you guys picked them, because you had no idea what each other was working from. So when I was looking at the arguments, I thought Yusuf was really strong on his opening salvo against Dan about prequels having no stakes. And I think that it's interesting, too, that you both kind of nodded to Solo for a moment in that moment, because I agree. I think that when you have a prequel, what is the real danger for the main character. So then I was looking at Dan's prequel choices. I agree with Kimber that of the two universes, I'm actually really more interested in the Fifth Element universe than the Valerian universe because of the way these movies came about. The problem I had with the Lilu movie was that Lilu is only Lilu in the Fifth Element, but not necessarily in a prequel.
True.
She could be anything else. So when you said Lilu, I was like, well, she's not a prequel, So, but I do like the idea of seeing the history of John McClane, Corbin Dallas. But I don't want to see a Ruby Rod movie. I'm sorry, I don't think a Chris Tucker vehicle for 2 hours would be fun. So for me, what really sealed it was I love that Yusuf gave me genres. He said, I want to do a movie like a murder mystery set in my world. I want to do a heist movie set in my world. I want to do a horror movie set in my world. And then he helped me understand how those would happen in the Valerian universe. And I think for that reason, he gave the best argument. So Yusuf gets the points, 2 points, and that gives you the win today, Yusuf. Congratulations, buddy. Well done.
Can I say something real quick?
Absolutely.
I like Josh, and James Earl Jones is a fine actor. It's just when I get those out.
Did you want to hear what other people wanted?
I would love to hear the socials. What were they talking about out there?
TJ threw out an ET universe. Tom was wanting a Small Soldiers universe.
Nice.
There was some talk of a Lando universe, but I think that would suffer from similar problems.
Christ, no.
John Q. Public wanted a He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and Nolan was talking about a Stephen King universe.
Very nice. Guys, those are all great picks.
Oh, and I would like to pitch a Roadhouse universe all about bouncers. And I just think that's a really great idea. Like, I would just like to see more stories in that world.
And each title of each movie is the name of the bars that they're in. You start with Double Deuce, and then you go.
That one.
So, guys, that's a victory, and that means, Yusuf, you just won yourself a fight with Brian sometime in the near future. So for people who are wondering, yes, we will try to do more new episodes of TUFF. We're going to look at doing a monthly schedule. So I will talk more about that on a certain show that I will plug for you in just a moment. But let's start with our fighters. Ryan, where can everybody find you on the internet?
You can find me at the Twitter handle, The Ohio Review. I just do Twitter now. I don't do anything else. I am a little flustered, so I'm going to ignore that, and I want to plug a friend of the show. Her name is Amy. So go to her Twitter, Amy Awesome. She is currently dealing with some illness problem. She has a GoFundMe. Please go help her out. She's a great lady. For her, it is a constant struggle. So the more help we can send.
I appreciate that. Yeah, Amy Awesome is her Twitter handle. Definitely check her out. She could definitely use some help. Thank you very much for that. Dan Nye, tell us where we can find you on the internet.
Yes, echoing very much Amy. Great person. Lovely to talk to always. You can find me on the various social medias at Ohhi Dan Nye, OHHI Dan Nye. I have a podcast, Ramble On About Movies. At some places, it's just Ramble On Movies because the name's too long. We do podcasts every week or so, and then reviews a bunch of times. Also, I'm in a bunch of things you can go find online. So I'll plug my IMDb. So go look at that. And then if you have any questions about things I've been in, I think I got Tom to watch. He was scared of clowns, and I got him to watch one of my movies I was in where it's like a B movie, and I get to kill killer demon clowns, and that was a lot of fun to do. So look for that.
Very nice. Thank you for coming today and fighting with us. We appreciate it. Our champion for the day, Yusuf Kanessa. Tell us where we can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at Why I Love Movies. I have my own site, whyilovemovies.com, and where I just talk about movies and the love I have for them. Even if they suck, I always try to find something that I loved in it, because it's one of my favorite art forms. It was fun hyping the movie fights here, but it's always fun just to have conversations with you guys.
Now the floodgates are open.
Now the floodgates are open.
So we can
now Brian can't run. Brian can't run anymore.
Which brings us to the former champ and host of the DVD Bunker, Brian Hurst. You've been podcasting like a madman. Tell us where they can find it.
Oh, yeah. You can find me always on Twitter at Hurstchilles. I do have, obviously, here on the TUFF channel, my old back episode of DVD. Oh, yeah.
Us.
Find the old episodes on here. I'm also putting out re-releases of uncut, longer edits that have more nonsense and tomfoolery in them. You can find those on like SoundCloud and iTunes and probably most places you listen to podcasts. I am guesting whenever people have me on podcasts, so look for me if you see my name. I'll be doing that. And definitely find me on Twitter, because just like Yusef, you can just like badger your way into my life and become like a daily reminder of the sad side of internet fame. So just.
Well, we really appreciate you, Brian. Thank you so much for doing the fact checking today. That leads us to finally our champion, Kimber Barrett. Where can we find you on the internet? Because this is important.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram and all that jazz at KimberBatch_OSP. You can also find us on me and Tom, my partner. If you want actual tomfoolery, you can check us out at Odd Shaped Channel. And we'll be doing an episode of that tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And if any of you guys want to join us, I know that Jack was going to come through and talk about the episode a bit, but if any of you guys would like to join us, contact me. I'm sure that everybody would love to hear what you were thinking during the process of this episode. And Yusuf, for sure. It's a call-in show. Yeah, it's a call-in show, and tomorrow's kind of one of our more relaxed episodes, just talking about current events. And this is definitely a current event in our YouTube community, so we hope to see you guys there.
And I'd like to go and tell you guys that I will be there tomorrow near the top of the show talking about the future of TUFF and fan friction. We are going to keep doing these shows. We want to have you as a fighter, so definitely keep us an eye out for that on Monday, because it is Sunday. Yeah, tomorrow. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock on the Odd Shape channel here on YouTube, so definitely check that out, and you can find out more about what's going to happen here on TUFF there tomorrow. So thank you, everybody. That was it. Woohoo! We're back. We did a show. This is awesome. Everyone fought really well today. This was a great show. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time on Fan Friction. Bye, everybody.
Bye.